Here is the strange thing about induction cooking. The stove is not really doing the heating in the way most people think. With gas, you see a flame. With a regular electric stove, you see a hot glowing coil or a hot surface. But with induction, the pan itself becomes the heater. That is why water can boil so fast, why the surface often stays much cooler, and why some pans work perfectly while others do absolutely nothing. It feels almost like magic, but it is really just smart physics. So how does induction cooking work? The simple answer is this: an induction cooktop uses electricity to create a changing magnetic field under the glass surface. When you place the right kind of pan on top, that magnetic field creates electric currents inside the pan. Those currents turn into heat inside the metal itself. In other words, the heat starts in the pan, not in the cooktop. That is the big idea to remember through this whole video. The pan heats, not the stove. From flames to invisible heat. To understand why induction feels so different, it helps to look at the older ways people cooked. For a long time, cooking was all about direct heat from fire, coal, wood, or gas. Then electric stoves became common, where a metal coil or hidden heating element got hot first and passed that heat into the pan. Later, smooth-top electric stoves made kitchens look cleaner and more modern, especially after glass ceramic cooktops became a major design standard in the 1970s. Induction kept the smooth surface look, but changed the heating method completely. Instead of heating a burner first, it sends energy straight into the cookware. What is under the glass under an induction cooktop? There is a coil of wire. When alternating current runs through that coil, it creates a changing magnetic field. You cannot see that field, but it is the reason induction works. Think of it like an invisible handoff of energy. The cooktop is not trying to make the glass hot. It is creating the conditions for the pan to heat itself. That is why induction is often called direct heating, even though the pan is not touching a flame or glowing element. What happens when the pan sits on top? The moment a compatible pan sits over that magnetic field, physics takes over. The changing field induces eddy currents inside the metal base of the pan. Those currents move through the pan and meet resistance, and that resistance turns electrical energy into heat. Some explanations also note that magnetic cookware helps this process work better, which is why iron and many steels are good fits for induction. So the hot part is not the glass. The hot part is the cookware itself. That cookware then heats your food. Why only some pans work? This is also why only some pans work on induction. Induction cooktops need cookware that responds properly to the magnetic field. In everyday terms, that usually means cookware made from magnetic metals, such as cast iron or some kinds of stainless steel. A simple home test is the magnet test. If a magnet sticks firmly to the bottom of the pan, there is a good chance it will work on induction. If it does not stick, the pan probably will not work well, or at all. That is why people are sometimes surprised when one pan works and another one right beside it does nothing. Why the pan heats so fast? One reason induction often feels faster is that it wastes less energy. Gas throws a lot of heat around the sides of the pan and into the air. Regular electric cooktops heat an element first, then the pan. Induction skips those extra steps and puts much more of the energy into the cookware itself. According to the U.S. Department of Energy and Energy Star material, induction can be about 3 times more efficient than gas and around 5 to 10% more efficient than conventional electric resistance cooking. That does not mean every meal will cook 3 times faster, but it helps explain why induction feels quick and responsive. Why people describe induction as more responsive. Another thing people notice is control. With gas, you can see the flame, which makes it feel responsive. With traditional electric, there is often a delay because the heating element has to warm up and cool down. Induction feels different because the energy transfer changes quickly when you raise or lower the setting. Since the cookware is the main heat source, changes can feel more immediate. That is one reason many users say boiling is fast and simmering can feel more precise. The biggest myth. Now let's clear up one of the biggest myths. A lot of people think the glass gets hot first and then heats the pan. That is not how induction works. The heat is created in the pan. The cooktop surface can still become warm or hot during cooking, but that usually happens because the hot pan transfers heat back into the glass through contact. So the surface is not cold forever, but it is also not the original source of the heat the way a standard electric stove is. That small difference is the whole trick behind induction. Why the smooth glass still matters. The glass surface still matters, just not in the way people assume. It provides a flat cooking surface, protects the electronics below, and makes cleaning easier. Since the area around the pan stays cooler than a traditional electric burner, spills are less likely to burn onto the surface right away. That cleaner, more minimal surface is part of why induction fits modern kitchens so well. It combines the sleek look of a smooth-top stove with a very different heating system underneath. A short history of induction at home. Induction may feel futuristic, but it is not new. The idea has been around for a long time. U.S. Department of Energy Material notes that induction cooktops were introduced to the American public in the middle of the 20th century and saw wider consumer attempts in the 1970s. But early models struggled with cost, durability, and performance, so they did not take off in a big way in the U.S. right away. Over time, improvements in electronics, cookware compatibility, and cooktop materials helped induction become much more practical and much more attractive to home users. Induction versus gas. In simple terms, if you compare induction to gas in the simplest way possible, gas heats with a flame and induction heats with a magnetic field. Gas gives you visible fire, but it also sends a lot of heat into the room. Induction gives you no visible flame, but sends much more of the energy into the pan. That can mean a cooler kitchen, less wasted heat, and fast cooking. Consumer Reports and dough materials also note that induction avoids the combustion byproducts that come with gas cooking. Induction versus regular electric. In simple terms, compared with regular electric, the difference is where the heat starts. On a coil stove or standard smooth-top electric stove, the burner or heating element gets hot first, then the pan gets hot. On induction, the pan gets hot first. That is why induction can feel like a smarter version of electric cooking. It still uses electricity, but it uses it in a more targeted way. The result is often faster heating, less wasted energy, and a surface that does not stay hot in the same way as a traditional electric burner. Why this matters in everyday life. All of this science matters because it changes the cooking experience in simple, everyday ways. Water can boil fast. Temperature changes can feel more immediate. The kitchen can stay more comfortable because less heat spills into the air. Cleaning is easier because the surface is flat and usually not as hot around the pan as a normal burner. And the safety story is different too, because there is no open flame and the surface is not meant to be the main heat source. The invisible heater idea. The easiest way to picture induction is to stop thinking about the stove as the heater. The cooktop is more like the power sender. The pan is the heater. That is the mental shift. Gas heats the air and the pan. Traditional electric heats the burner and then the pan. Induction creates the conditions for the pan to heat itself. Once you understand that, everything else makes sense. Why the magnet test matters, why the surface behaves differently, and why induction feels so fast. So, how does induction cooking work? A coil under the glass creates a changing magnetic field. A compatible pan responds to that field. Eddy currents form inside the pan. The pan turns electrical energy into heat. Your food cooks because the cookware becomes the heat source. That is why the real story of induction is so interesting. It looks like a normal smooth cooktop, but underneath, it is really an invisible heater. And once you know that, you will never look at a pan the same way again. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share and subscribe. Then tap the bell icon to turn on all notifications so you never miss any of our future videos.